Nithyanandam. My name is Nithyananda Swami. I'm a disciple of His Holiness Paramahamsa Nithyananda. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And with Swamiji's blessings and grace, I make this video about why you should become a vegetarian. Now, this video is really addressed for those who are currently eating meat as part of their diet and are thinking about making the change to becoming a vegetarian. Now, you probably have your own personal reasons why you don't want to become a vegetarian or why it's difficult. Now, I'm coming from the context of someone who used to eat meat, someone who stopped eating meat, and who has a context of why we should become vegetarian and not eat meat. Like many people, I grew up eating meat, and when I started to feel like, this isn't for me, I wanted to stop, it seemed like a very difficult thing to do. And primarily, I had this understanding or cognition that if you're a vegetarian, you don't have many options. And I wasn't always living at home, so I didn't have my Purvasha mother, my biological mother's food. I had to rely on food from a restaurant or, fast food places and whatnot. And those vegetarian options are very slim. And what's actually available is not very healthy. So Swamiji actually described places that think they have so many options of varieties of foods as food deserts because they're actually void of having any actual real food that you can put inside of you. Now, for many of you, you may be thinking, well, meat has protein. If I don't have meat, where will I get my protein? Well, the good news is there are so many recipes and ways to get protein into your system. And many people make the switch to become vegetarian after learning about how the meat comes to the plate. It's either they see the cruelty that's done to the animals, or they see a picture of the animal suffering. They see a video. They see how maybe dirty the whole process is, literally, and they just decide it's just too disgusting. So that's one reason, one way people stop eating meat. For me, how I actually stopped, and I heard many people who met Swamiji also stop like this. In my early 20s, I decided I wanted to stop eating meat, and I did. And then I ran into this obstacle of, not having many options. So I started to eat meat again. I felt like I had to. Then I took Swamiji's program. The first program I took with Swamiji was a 3-day Nithyananda Spurana program, NSP as we used to call it. And in that program, that's the one in my previous video, I mentioned how I was cured of back pain, which was caused by car accidents. Literally in that program, I could feel something happening on my spine. And after the program, the pain was gone. I didn't ask for healing. It just happened to me by Swamiji's grace. And I really never had back pain after that. You can see that video if you want more information on how that happened. But the other amazing thing that happened in that program was after that program, I realized several days later, I had no desire or inclination to have meat. It just simply did not become something I was thinking about or naturally was inclined to eat or anything. I just forgot about it, essentially. And I never went back to it. I never felt any kind of loss that I didn't have meat. I never even had the idea that I don't have options or that there's obstacles in living a vegetarian life. And it's not like anything really shifted in the outer world. There was the same amount of options as far as restaurants, my ability to cook, all those things, nothing changed. But inside, there was a huge shift. Basically, what I experienced was that my body, mind, and being aligned to what was the natural way to exist, which is not having meat. So that was my personal experience. And it was a very profound experience because I knew how I tried to quit eating meat before and was unsuccessful. And just by simply attending Swamiji's NSP workshop, I dropped it. And so many people, especially those who take the Inner Awakening program, they go in as meat eaters. There's no talk about, you having to quit meat. It's just you're educated on why you should have a sattvic vegetarian diet. And people naturally stop eating meat, and they have similar experience to what I'm describing. But the real shocker for me was how Swamiji gave the full insight on why you should not eat meat. Now, I mentioned before there's a cruelty, then there's the unhealthy aspects of it, then there's the grotesque ways the meat is processed. All these things are kept under the cover, and because of the internet and the activism of animal cruelty activists, people who are against the killing of animals, more and more of this has come to light, and rightfully so. But some people are still not moved because they feel an animal is not as much living as they are, or if you don't see it, then you don't have to deal with it. So they don't look at these things that would kind of force them to rethink their decision. Fine. But another angle is, now, if you look on the internet, if you look on Facebook, somehow some image will pop up of some poor animal, with blood and all sorts of grotesque images and just an immense suffering happening. And then it might hit you like, oh my God, this poor animal. And that will shake you. Now, I want you to take it a step further. That animal, right before it's about to be killed, just put yourself in the animal's position. What are the emotions you go through at that time? You would go through. If you're about to be murdered, what would be your emotions? Naturally, fear, strong fear. Maybe anger. Maybe it's someone you know, or just the thought of your life about to end would lead to anger, just a franticness, maybe a sadness, but it'll be very intense emotions that just like an adrenaline rush going where they don't just disappear into the air once you are killed. These emotions actually are like a matter. They go into your muscles. They become part of your muscle memory. Now, when an animal is killed for meat, many things are not given to the consumer, but the one thing that is the meat, which is the muscle. So after it gets nicely processed and packaged and put on the plate or in the grocery store, and then you consume it, you bring it home and you consume it, that muscle memory goes into you and becomes part of your muscle memory. You literally are what you eat. So obviously, these cognitions of fear, anger, pain, intense pain, go into your system and they have an effect on you, a deep effect on you. So obviously, with this context, it's very difficult to separate yourself from the meat and turn a blind eye to the meat. If you even have the cognition that animals are lesser and it doesn't matter, but that animal is not separate from you. The animal actually becomes a part of you, whether you like it or not. And all the suffering that was a part of that animal becomes a part of you. And if you look at most developed countries, they have some of the highest crime rates. They have the worst depression. And a lot of it is linked to their diet and how they live. So the purpose of this video is to give you another reason and a full context, which this context comes from Hinduism, as Swamiji so beautifully explains it to us and practically explains it to us. See, we're all logical people. Once we hear the truth, we cannot deny it. And I really feel this is one of those truths you cannot deny. Even if you don't have the scientific background or you're not a spiritual master to know if all of this is, you have the evidence to show, just your mind, body, and being will resonate with this, that suffering from that being becomes a part of you. You are what you eat. Now, with this knowledge, really look at this decision to continue eating meat. Is it worth it? On top of the suffering for another being, on top of the amount of money wasted on the meat industry to keep the suffering alive, you have the context that this suffering becomes a part of you. You have enough going on in your life. Do you really need this added to you? There's so many other beautiful things that can be added to you, and there are so many ways to have proper nutrition through a vegetarian lifestyle. So if you have any questions, or you disagree or agree, I know there's plenty of people who agree, but I'm hopefully speaking into the listening of people who are on the verge of quitting meat eating. And I've been there. I know where you might be, and I just wanted to share one of the amazing clicks that Swamiji shared with us and give a totally different context of why you shouldn't eat meat. And I really feel this really needs to be shared with the world as an education and as a truth that the world needs to hear. So that's why I made this video today, and thank you so much for your time. And if you have any comments or questions, please type them below, and thank you so much. NIthyanandam.